All right. Welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. Again, I want to welcome everyone. Holding by the Book of Leviticus Chapter 16. We spoke last week about the vestments, the linen vestments, and why specifically linen and not using the gold vestments over here. So working our way through, going to hopefully speak a little bit about Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur offerings that we're going to see. Verse 5 again. Book of Leviticus chapter 16, verse 5. Torah tells me, Me'ezadas b'nei Yisrael, Yikach shnei se'irei izim lechatas, v'hayim echad la'oilo. There are two offerings here that are going to be brought. Torah tells me, from the assembly of the children of Israel, he's going to take 2 he-goats as a sin offering and a ram for an oil offering, right? An oil offering means it was an offering that was burnt up, right? Totally burnt up. So something that wasn't used, not going to be used for anything, meaning no benefit over here, totally gets burnt up, right? So we have that offering. We have a goat offering as a sin offering, right? So we have these 2 he-goats we're going to see. We're going to see in verse 7. If we get there, I'm not sure we're going to get there. But there are 2 offerings going to be brought. Right? 2 of these goats. There are going to be lots on these goats, etc. So here, there are 2 offerings. Right? We have 2 he-goats. We got a ram for a burnt offering. Burnt offering, we have to remember. What is it? What does it atone for? Bad thoughts. We have 2 offerings. One is going to be these goat offerings. One is going to be for the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and his family, and the other for the Jewish people. Right. So we're going to go into detail here. Says verse 6. So Aaron is going to bring his own sin offering, his own bull, his own sin offering bull, and atone for himself, for his household. So one offering, as we said before, is going to be for him. It's only going to be for him and his family. And the other will be for the sake of the Jewish people. Now, first thing here, it says that Aaron's going to bring his own sin offering. Now, what does it mean, his own? Simply, it should mean he has to own it. Right? That's what it sounds like. Comes on Rashi. Rashi says, we mentioned this above, right, in verse 3, that has to be sanctified. The hekdesh to the temple, it's got to be sanctified. And here was the Torah teach me, says Rashi, that it comes for his own, i.e. means he purchased it with his own money and not that of public funds. It comes on the Medrash, comes along the Gemara in Yuma 3b. Anyone wants to look it up. So, interesting enough, this offering, we're talking about his own sin offering bull. The only time mentioned it, right? Mentioned in verse 3 as well. Because in verse 3, what does it tell me? Torah says, Aaron should come into the sanctuary with a bull. So the same offering, same thing. Already told me. Right? It's referring to that bull. But the question is, okay, if it's referring to that bull, why is it mentioned again? From here, he's telling me a novelty. The novelty is going to belong to him. Has to belong to him. So it's not just, I might think, it's his to perform the service over here. But it has to be purchased with his own money, with his own funds. Now, this is a little bit different than we said by the vestments. Why? because by the vestments, they weren't bought with his funds. So explains Maharal and others. In other words, they weren't his. They weren't his per se. They didn't come from his own money. Right? They were funds of the temple. Remember, people donated in order to buy sacrifices and all that. But over here, a lot of the funds come from the public. This, though, says the Torah, as explains Rashi, has to be his. 100%, it has to come from him. As we saw before, other sacrifices, etc., come from the public funds. Here, it's his offering. Not just he's performing the service. I mean, that's true. But the fact is, it's his. And it has to be his. That's what the Torah tells me. Then the Torah says, and it's going to atone for himself and his household. What does he do? He takes this sacrifice and he does vidui. He confesses his sins, the sin of his household. Now, one thing got to be understood, as it's brought down, as Talmud tells us, Yuma 36b, person brings a sacrifice, brings full atonement. Right? Only when does the atonement come? It comes after blood has been sprinkled on the altar. Now again, a person also has to repent. Bringing the sacrifice not enough, still need repentance as well. But the atonement over here comes when you sprinkle the blood. When the blood goes on the altar. Now, what's the problem? That's normally when atonement comes. But this verse can't be talking about that. Why? Because over here we're talking about atonement that precedes the slaughter of the offering. Right? That we're going to see later. In verse 11. So what's the earlier process of atonement? Right? What's the earlier process over here? The earlier process of atonement is confession. Confession comes first over here. Oh, you tell me, or I would have thought, doesn't atonement come when the blood is sprinkled? Maybe it comes when the blood is sprinkled on the altar. That comes later. Right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about over here. What does the Torah tell me? Torah says he atones for himself and for his household. Now, what does that mean? I need some Karaites out there. Tell me what this means. How can it atone over here? If you want to tell me it atones because they brought the blood, they sprinkled the blood, very good. We're not talking about that. It's saved for him and his household. What kind of atonement does that sound like? Vidui, confession. Right? We're pointing out that, as Rashi said, atone for himself and his household means he confessed. It's a stage before the blood is sprinkled on the altar. What if there's no atonement? Sorry, what if there's no confession? In other words, let's say the blood's already been sprinkled and there's no confession. Is there atonement? Certainly not full atonement. Person can go through Yom Kippur, right? Yom Kippur can atone. And we mentioned this before. Yom Kippur can atone, but what about Tshuva? What about Tshuva? What about repentance? So, I was taking a task a few weeks back, saying by secular Jews come to the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. They come on Yom Kippur. Now again, someone's going to say, how do you know the thoughts of man? I don't. Never claimed I was a prophet. But I can tell you, people who are coming, secular Jews, as I would call them, they may beat their chest. I don't know how many repent. I can take a survey, but I can pretty much guess. Now, someone can say you're making a huge assumption. You're right. Based on what I've seen, based on experience. Are they beating their chest because they spoke Lashon Hara? No. I don't even think they know what Lashon Hara is, or they care what Lashon Hara is. Are they beating their chest because they embarrass their parents or teachers or say negative things about them? No, I don't think so. Most of the things we beat our chest for on Yom Kippur are things that we say. Right? Things that we say. So for most people, as we mentioned before, I don't think they give a rat's tail what they say. I don't think they care. And if someone gets offended, it's your fault. Or they'll say, everybody knows it anyway. Why can't I say it? Because it's Lashon Hara, 36 prohibitions in one shot. Maybe there are some, that are thinking about repentance. Maybe. Now, I won't say it's 100% nobody is. That I wouldn't go so far to say. Maybe there are some. I didn't meet too many of them. They went because they went for whatever reason. But real repentance, feeling bad, having remorse, regret about what they've done, I don't think so. And again, people can say, you don't know. You don't know what's in their mind. You're right. 100%. Not a prophet, not the son of a prophet. I don't know. I can tell you what people say, what I've heard, what I've seen. If that's repentance, then that's, they're in trouble. We're going to speak about confession in a little bit. But somebody whose biggest question was they eat, they put ketchup or mustard on their hot dog. You really think they're repenting? I don't think so. Right? Vast majority could care less. Why they're there? It's a good question. But confession, feeling bad about what they've done, the actions to others, even if they go, hard to imagine. Just explain to them the laws of Lashon Hara. First of all, they're not going to take you seriously, but then they'll justify, it's really forbidden, but everybody knows it. People don't care. Most people today don't care. And since they don't care, okay, we'll come up with a number of reasons why potentially they're there. Why they're there in synagogue on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Here specifically Yom Kippur. What? You're not going to go to synagogue on Yom Kippur? Yeah, a lot of people don't. There are those that do, okay? Certainly those unaffiliated don't go, and that's the majority. Certainly we have American Jews that are unaffiliated. So they're not going to synagogue. But again, I'll go on a limb here, right? We're recording here, I'll go on a limb. Even the ones that go to synagogue, what are they repenting for? I'd like to know what they're repenting for. You show me they're trying to keep Shabbos. You show me they're trying to move in a spiritual way. I can hear. But if not, I don't know what they're doing there. I have an idea, but doesn't matter. They're not there for the reason I'm there, or that we're there. Yeah, they may read some of the liturgy, maybe hear a sermon. Are they there to change? Are they really there to be better? And a lot of them, they drive. They're certainly going to drive on Yom Kippur. That should tell you something. Tell me they don't know anything. Never learned about it. Okay, that might all be true. Knowledge is power. Lack of knowledge, I get it. But what are they there for? I'm not so sure. I think a lot of it might have to do with guilt, or they believe in their heart of hearts it's the right thing to do. They believe a Jew goes to synagogue on Yom Kippur. Okay? Could be the parents drag them. They went, whatever. But if you're unaffiliated, you don't go. You're not going to go. My question is, even the ones that go, what are they getting out of it? What are they really taking out of it? I mean, if you look at the liturgy is pretty, it's pretty awe-inspiring if you think about it. You go there, you should feel like an absolute piece of dirt. Look what I've done against God. Look what I've said. Look at, all these things. All I have to do is read the confession. I've sinned. I've done willingly. Spoken in Lashon Hara, did this, did that, did the other thing. At least we should feel bad. We should feel bad. Other people are going to feel bad because they spoke badly against someone else. Tend to doubt it. Again, I'm not taking a survey, but I can't imagine. They'll say, suck it up. That's the way it is. That's what I said. They don't like it, too bad. What my Rebbe would say, let them go eat kugel. And they don't like it. I didn't do anything wrong. I told the truth. I said the truth. But guess what? The Chofetz Chaim says Lashon Hara is even if it's true. And you got to fulfill a whole bunch of conditions. They're not holding it. They care less. Conditions, not conditions. I'll say what I want. You don't like it? Okay, it's too bad. I will speak about confession. But here the high priest going gadol comes and he's confessing for his sins and the sins of his household. So this helps the tone. But make no mistake, person has to do something also. You can't necessarily rely on someone else. They're going to repent for you. How's that work? Doesn't work. What, I'm going to pay someone off so they can atone for me? They'll take the sins from me? Great. I don't have to do anything. Perfect. It doesn't work like that. Everyone has their own connection to God. Everyone has their own obligations. I cannot fulfill someone else's obligations, whatever they're doing here in the world, whatever their purpose, and no one can fulfill it for me. Each one is their own individual. So they have to answer for themselves. We all have to answer. Some people would say, someone told me a while ago, I'm not worried about that. Next world, I'm not worried about that. Should be. We all have to take stock. We're not going to be here forever. Faith, right? We're not going to be here forever. We have to take stock. We have to take life seriously, like today's the last day. And then tomorrow we're going to have to answer. How many people do that? I can't answer. That's what we should do. That's what it means to take an accounting, a self-accounting. So the essence of Yom Kippur. Yeah, you tell me it's the fast. And that we don't eat from sundown to sundown. The essence of Yom Kippur is confession. That's what it is. But I'm admitting, persons admitting they've done something wrong. That's the essence of confession. And it could be that's all you have to say on the Torah level. I have sinned. Everything else might be extra. But why do you even have to say I've sinned? Doesn't one of the 13 principles of faith, according to the Rambam, it's God knows the thoughts of man. So God knows what's in my heart. So if he knows what's in my heart, why do I have to confess? Why do I have to admit I've done something wrong? Let me admit it in my heart. Or if I've heard some people say, I don't do anything, I'm good. I'm good in my heart. Yeah, what does that mean? Oh, but I see you, came to taxes, different issue. Oh, that's different. Uncle Sam takes too much anyway. Okay, it's not a legal loophole, but, I got an all-cash business, I'll have to clear what I want. Well, that's not so honest. If it's legal to do that, fine. If not, got a problem. Someone say, come on, Uncle so-and-so is dying anyway, so we just put him out of his misery or our misery. Euthanasia. Well, isn't euthanasia forbidden? Isn't that murder? Don't we say that's no different than if you shot someone in the head? Same thing. No difference. Right? Absolutely no difference. Oh, but that, they'll justify it that way. Justify another way. We're very good at that. But see, the difference is something in my heart. What do we say? The Gemara says, "Devarim shebalev eino devarim." Words in my heart don't mean anything. What I think can have repercussions. So that a few weeks back, certainly by idolatry, you saw the Kli Yakar says, you think about idolatry, you don't say it, you think it, transgress. Could be for morality also. Even if you don't act on it, but you think about it. But normally, words in my heart don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. The person can say, yeah, but I'm good in my heart. What does that mean? Judaism is not about philosophy, per se. Judaism is about action. Right? We say before the Shema every day. In the morning, Lilmod Lamed Lishmor Vlasos. Lilmod, I'll learn Torah. Lamed, if I have the ability, I'll teach. Lishmor Vlasos. I'll guard it, I'll keep it. I'll do it. So it's a big responsibility. It's not like some people would say, okay, I want an explanation, a good explanation. Let's say why a Jew is not allowed to wear woolen linen. What we call shotness. Someone told me, asked me, well, why is that? I said, well, it's a law we don't necessarily understand. It's called the chok. No different than the red heifer. No different than kashrus. The law we don't understand. Try and figure it out, but okay, essentially it's the law we don't understand. Well, the person say, well, if you can't give me an explanation, why would I keep it? And my answer is, and if I would, let's say I give you 10 explanations. You can knock all of them off. Nah, I don't like this one. This one doesn't appeal to me. This one I like. You're going to keep it? No. For any number of reasons. So, what do we have to do over here? What is the essence of Yom Kippur? The essence of Yom Kippur is, I said I've done something wrong. It's not enough just to think it. You got to do something. When I say something, when I verbalize it, it has an effect. Right? It totally has an effect. And it should have an effect. I have to hear the words. Because a person can think something and not be affected. They can totally not be affected. But when you say it, and you verbalize it, and you hear it, doesn't matter, you whisper it, but your ears hear what you said, that has an effect. 100% it has an effect. And what we say also, can affect how we feel as well. A person can be very depressed and say, woe to me, this, that, and the other thing, spiral out of control and depression. Or they can say, no, kind of civil complex here. No, I'm not going to let it get to me. This is just the evil inclination. I'm going to work out of it, right? You psych yourself up, so to speak. Words have an effect. It is true. They've proven, or seemingly proven, if you have, anyone's ever spoken to a plant, right? Speaking to a plant has an effect. The claim has an effect, positive effect. If a person would play, let's say rap music or something like that, also has an effect. Right? Something we hear. But it's also something we say. So the whole point of confession is to say, I've done something wrong. But we have to remember, we're not going to make ourselves feel 100% like a piece of dirt, because otherwise, My Rebbe would say, you live in the past, you have no future. But you have to admit, I've done something wrong. I got to be better. I have to work at it. A lot of things. A lot of things we have to do. And we have to make a plan, how we're not going to, do the sin again, and how we're not going to get caught up by the evil inclination. But the first thing we have to do is admit we've done something wrong. That is not so easy. On the other hand, people could say the words, but it also has no meaning. It's sort of catch-22. They'll say, okay, I admit I've done something wrong. Now what? But if you admit you've done something wrong, shouldn't have regrets, remorse. You're going to say you're never going to do it again. The other aspects of repentance. Then you have to go out and do it. But saying the words, I should have made this clear at the beginning. You're going to say, okay, if I heard the words, very good. Yeah, but if you heard the words, they don't mean anything. They're just words. You're not taking them to heart without being paralyzed by it. So if I say the words, it should have an effect. If I say the words, they don't have an effect, then they're just words. God knows that. Now you're going to say there are different levels. Very well, could be. But what's the basic level? What's the basic level over here? The basic level is to say, I've sinned, I've done something wrong, and feel bad. And feel bad. Imagine one of our closest friends. We wronged them. Very close friend. And we did something that we never should have done. Got caught up in the time, whatever it was. And now you want to make amends. So you go to the person and say, listen, I got carried away. I really didn't mean it. I feel bad, that it happened. This has come between us. But what are the words the other person wants to hear? Those are all good words. But what do they want to hear? They want to hear, I'm sorry. That's what they want to hear. Now, I'm not saying they're going to forgive them. They should, if possible. Right? We've spoken about that a number of times. But they want to hear, not only you've done something wrong. That's good. But they have to hear the admission. They have to, it can't just be words. Because they'll never forgive you for that. If a person comes to them and says, they say all the right words. They say every right word except the fact there's no emotion. So they're words. And then they'll say, but I apologize. And, it's easy body language to see. Yeah, you apologize. The words came out of your mouth, but they didn't mean anything. They didn't mean anything. So if they didn't mean anything, they're not worth anything. And the person won't forgive you. Why should they forgive you? They don't think you're real. They don't think you mean it. It's hard enough admitting we've done something wrong, but to do it in an uncaring way, why should anyone accept that? Or I'll say even better. Say even better. I'll say even better. Someone once said to me, it was a few years back already, someone once said to me, they admitted they were wrong. And they said, you're right. Whatever I said, they said, I agree. So, on the one hand, it's good. You hear someone admit they've done something wrong. See, but also, even if they say you're right, now I could take it the wrong way here, right? But if someone says that you're right, they've done something wrong. And you say, well, look what you've done over here. Look at these things you did. And they say you're right. Now, when they say you're right, that's an admission. Is that an apology? It's not an apology. They're not saying, I feel bad. Forget about all the conditions. Remorse, regret, all these things. But what's the essence of confession? To say, I'm sorry. To say, I've sinned. That's the essence of confession. It's good. I'm not going to say not. I was actually shocked to hear the person admit. They said, okay, you're right. That's about as far as it went. He didn't say, well, I feel bad. Wasn't expecting him to kiss my feet in any way. Confession. Emotion. Yeah, I guess you're right. Okay, that's something. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's about a 1.2. I don't think it's much more than that. It's a step. Definitely a step in the right direction, even though nothing came out of it. But, a step in the right direction. That's not admission, though. When you come in front of God, we say, a lot of times, many times when we say confession, we say Lifnei Hashem. We say before God. Because you're admitting in front of it. I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other thing. Now, the problem is we can go through the motions. Potentially, maybe, we may feel bad enough, we may shed a tear or two. Maybe. Even though we live in this tissue generation or this cream puff generation. Could very well be. But see, God also knows. Even if you're going through the motions and you say, Chatanu, Pashanu, Avinu, Pashanu, and we beat our chest, he knows. Do you really mean it? Deep down, he knows. As a lot of those penitential prayers on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur say, God is Bochen Klayos. He checks our kidneys. He knows what's inside of us. Can't run, can't hide. But you have to mean it. But after Yom Kippur, we go back to being the same people. We can't. We got to work. We got to strive. Admitting we've done something wrong is good. Having remorse, regret is good. That's our obligation. But it can't be just words. You come in front of another person and you say, yeah, you're right. So they say, I won over here. Check one off for me. Unbelievable. They admit it. Write it down, shout it out to the moon. They admit it. But that's as far as it goes. I'm not saying by everybody what I'm just saying. If they really, now you got to go a little bit further. Admitting it, okay, that's a step in the right direction. But, comes without confession. Comes without, start my own eyes. I didn't see the utmost in regret. Having someone admit, you're right. They weren't going further than that. Because of the way the conversation went, they weren't going further than that. So you say, okay, don't be so harsh. It's a step in the right direction. Okay? Now, if I was God and that's the response, I go, yeah, you're right. Is that confession? Is that admitting deep down that you're wrong? To a certain extent it is. But confession over here, we're going to see, is very specific. I've done something wrong. See, that's sort of past the buck a little bit. That's like saying, over here, yeah, you're right. Now, let's analyze. You're right means I'm wrong. What it means, right? So if you're right, so that means they feel they've done something wrong. Okay? Again, so why do I say it's 1.2? Because nothing else came from that. After that was said. Step in the right direction, I would agree. Remorse? No. Right? Rabbeinu Yonah says you need remorse. You need regret for confession. And you need to confess. You need to go through Yom Kippur. So this is like, I would say, Maybe he got a D. Maybe he got a D in confession. It's something. Not nothing. I'm not going to say it's nothing. It definitely is something. Right? It's missing the most important element. What's the most important element over here? The heart. The heart's the most important element. Because over here, what do we see? They finally said something. It's unbelievable. They said something. There's no heart. So you get a D minus. I'm going to throw it down a level. You get a D minus. So God says, okay, I won't obliterate you. You get something, I'll give you some credit. I'll give you some credit. But you certainly didn't do it in the optimal way. 100%. You didn't do it in the optimal way. And what if you said the whole thing? What if you said the whole confession with no heart? You said the words, they didn't have an effect. Right? When we say Shema Yisrael, we have to hear the words. I'm not saying we scream it out, so we bother someone else praying next to us, but you have to hear the words. It has an effect. God is one. God is unique. God runs the world. We take on the yoke of mitzvahs. I love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. So how do we say it? Do we say it just saying the words? Anyone can say it. Does it have an effect? Then you're going to tell me, okay, I say it twice a day. Right? Say it in the morning, say it at night. So for all you men out there. So I say it, but why doesn't it have the effect? Okay, you can tell me prayer. One of the things needs to be strengthened. Tractate Brachot 32b. Number of things need to be strengthened. It's one of them. So we can do things by rote, which is akin to spiritual death. Spoken about that. So a person can go through Yom Kippur and not feel anything. But you're going to ask, how is that possible? You go to a synagogue, an Orthodox synagogue, 200 people there, 300 people there, 50 people there, whatever it is. And everyone's there doing the same thing, different levels. But everyone there is there for the right reason. Let's say, make it easy. So it's easy to get in that mind frame. That, yeah, we're all here feeling like a piece of dirt. That's what we're supposed to be doing. It's a tremendous day also. Atonement, new slate, clean slate over here. Tremendous. But if you don't do anything to prepare, you're just beating your heart, kind of like Tarzan, different way. And you're beating your heart, doesn't mean anything. Now, you might get some level of credit. If you fast on Yom Kippur, it's not going to atone for everything. Surely not. Right? Could be for things between man and God to atone. Man and man, for sure not. But you need repentance also. Certainly need repentance. But it's easy when everyone around you is doing the same thing. And you feel it much stronger. That I don't think there's any question. At the same time, where are we holding? Did we prepare in the month of Elul? Did we prepare the whole week of the Aser Shemei Tshuva? 10 days of repentance. Or do we just go through the motions? Or did we not do anything? We didn't wake up on Rosh Hashanah, not 10 days of repentance, not even in Yom Kippur. It means there's something serious wrong with our souls. That's what it means. And, it's something we have to work at. But the name of the game over here is I've done something wrong. 100% I've done something wrong. And, between man and God, it's a little bit easier. I think. Why? If we're embarrassed enough, and we did something against someone else, and now you have to go in front of them, That's a very hard thing to do. Takes a lot of guts. Takes a lot of, internal fortitude over here. Because they know why you're coming in front of them. You know why you're coming in front of them. At the same time, you got to go do it. It's a much harder thing. Much, much harder thing. You do it in front of God. Do we really believe God is in front of us? Other things a little bit easier. I would say it's easy because we don't see the person. We don't see him. At the same time, we know what he's doing. We know he's checking our hearts. We know he knows the thoughts of man. So in that sense, yeah, it's a lot more difficult. Because even though we can't necessarily see God here, but he sees right through us. But imagine having to admit to somebody we've done something wrong. See, the problem is we don't want to be subservient to anybody. We don't want to have to quote unquote bow to anyone. But if we've done something wrong against someone else, got to admit. That's how you're going to get atonement. Sins between man and man never atone unless you ask them for forgiveness. And they should forgive you. They should forgive you. Because if they don't, they come back a second time. You don't forgive them, come back a third time with a whole entourage of people. And if that time you don't forgive them, you get the sin. But you're going to say it's very hard to forgive. True. And what this person did this, that, and the other thing. True. Very, very true. But if we understand why the Chovos HaLevavos, like he says in duties of the hearts, he says, isn't that person a stick? What are you going to upset him for? God used them to get to you. He used them. So you should go up and hug him. Kiss him. Thank you for letting me to allow to work on my anger. Boy, it's kind of hard, isn't it? Just smashed up your car. Just injured you. Caused you this, that, and the other thing. But the Chovos HaLevavos says, oh, you think? I'm only talking to the righteous. Maybe it's only for people that, 0.25%, not even of the Jewish people holding there. No. He says this for everyone. That's the mentality. That's the mentality we have to have. It's hard. Not so easy to be a Jew over here. God expects a lot. The Torah says, we'll get there one day. Torah, Book of Leviticus Chapter 19, says can't take revenge. Can't bear a grudge against somebody. You ask someone to borrow their lawnmower. Say no. Say, yeah, but look, my backyard's like a jungle. Say, no, I'm not lending to you. Okay, find someone else, you work it out, whatever. This guy comes to you 2 weeks later. Says, oh, I saw you, you mowed your lawn, whatever. Says, can I borrow that lawnmower? Now, you come back and say, I'm not giving you my lawnmower. You know why? You didn't give it to me. You didn't lend it to me. And then let's say the guy didn't have a good excuse why he didn't lend it to you. If he didn't lend it to you because you damage property, you never give things back, different things, I get it. But if he didn't lend it to you because he didn't want to lend it to you, okay, that's his choice. It's wrong, but he should lend it to you unless he feels you're going to abuse it or misuse it or whatever. But what do? You tell them, oh, I would never lend you because you didn't lend me. That's a total prohibition. That's a total prohibition of taking revenge. Now you're going to say, but I'm right. I needed this thing at that moment and this person let me down. So you might be justified. 100% you might be justified. Doesn't make it right. I had somebody, I told the story before. I had somebody, I was speaking to my parents on a payphone. And this guy, for whatever reason, said, wow, you've been on the phone too long. And I hung up the phone. Said, I need the phone. Right? It's before cell phone. And what was so important? I was standing outside a pizza place. This guy calls up the owner of the pizza place, like, hey, my family's hungry, open up the store. That was more important than me speaking to my parents. Okay. All right, so imagine now I'm sitting and learning. And this guy comes in and says, oh, I see you have a pen. Can I borrow your pen for 1 second? Now look what this guy just did. This ignoramus that he is. And that's what he did. Now, if he asks me to borrow my pen, unless I think he's going to ruin it or whatever, I have to give it to him. If not, and I would have turned around and I said, look what you just did over here. No apology, no nothing, and now you want to borrow my pen? Yeah, I'll tell you where I think the pen should go. And people would say, you're right. You have absolutely every right to be angry at this person. Look what they did. But we're forgetting the bigger picture. First of all, that would be a total prohibition on my part for taking revenge. But look at the bigger picture. This guy did something wrong. Nothing to talk about. Nothing to talk about. You say, Coffin, you forgot. Close the Avos. Okay, I didn't learn it then. But you forgot it. God's using this person to get to you. You're going to get angry. He's doing it to work in your anger. You're going to say, take this Yetzer Hara, take the evil inclination. I'm going to flick it, kick it, smack it. Not going to let it get in my head. Now, again, how many people are holding that level? You know, there are some. They never got angry about anything. They know God runs the world, and this is a test. So what am I going to get angry about? You're going to say God expects? Yeah. Expects us to live at a higher level. At a much higher level. But I'm justified in what I'm doing. You're only justified in your own mind. And even though the person did the wrong thing, the other person did something wrong, even though that's 100% true, God will take care of him for that. We have no doubt. God will take care of him for that. But who says I'm not allowed to lend him my pencil now? Who says, even though he did that, I have a right to do that? So again, if I didn't have Torah, I could, I'd open up my big mouth and say, are you serious? And then you got to be off your cotton picking head. You want to borrow my pen after what you just did? No, go borrow someone else. Forget even telling them off. You say, no, go borrow someone else. Yeah, but you have a pen right here. I don't care. I'm not lending it to you. Go borrow someone else. I need it now. But you're not using it. Too bad. Tough luck. Go find your own pen. Now, without Torah, I can be justified. In a secular person's mind, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything wrong. This person did X. Okay. They say, two wrongs don't make it right. So someone will say, you be the bigger person. This person is whatever. But you be bigger. Some people would say that. Yeah, and they're right. Why should I stoop to their level? They did that, so why should I stoop to their level? True? 100% true. And at the same time, I could say, you know what? This guy did this, I'm going to do this back. I'm going to get even. You really need my pen? Haha, good luck. Wouldn't give my pen for you for never enough money in the bank to give me a pen. Maybe if I let you sign over your life insurance policy, maybe we'll talk. Otherwise, I'm not giving you my pen. Haha. You need me now? After what you did? I don't think people don't think like that. There will be people that'll say, come on, why you let them get in your head? I'm not. It's not getting in my head. I'm not doing it. They did that. I'm not doing it. That's it. Torah tells me it's wrong. That mentality is wrong. But the person did it. Yeah, so what about the Chuvas Levavos? What about what the Chuvas Levavos said? God uses person as a stick. Is the person liable? Yeah. Person caused damage. God will take care of them. So now if I understand that, and I understand that mentality, so why am I getting upset? Why would I not let him, why would I not lend him my pen? Because you're angry. You're angry for what the person did. And you're justified. You're totally justified. God says that's not how a Jew acts. A non-Jew could do it. I would say it's probably a moral imperative for a non-Jew. Wouldn't say necessarily obligation, right? But a non-Jew doesn't have to go this far. You're not obligated to go this far. But again, it affects you in a negative way. You're getting all bent out of shape. Blood pressure is rising. This person's under your skin. They got the best of you. That's what God wants. So then you ask me the $1.5 million question. So why did God send the person to you in the first place? To work on your anger. To see how much you trust God and you're going to serve him to that degree. Because Murphy's Law. Now the guy's going to ask you for a pen. Now he's going to ask you if change or something. Right? Let's say in Murphy's Law. So now you say, God, come on. It's a little bit ironic. You really expect, hey, I'm not even going to get angry. Not even going to think anything. I'm going to lend him my pen. Like, you really think that's what I should do? Yeah. That's the obligation. I didn't say living life is easy. Living life is not easy. But that's the mentality. That should be our mentality. And let's make clear. The Chovos Levavos there does not say one thing is about a righteous person. That's the Torah here is talking about a righteous person. He's talking about everybody. Because he already throws that out. Because he's saying, people are going to say, come on. The person just went through red lights, texting, whatever, smashed my car, injured me, or God forbid, a family member. You're not going to jump up and down over here. You're not going to get upset. Chovos Levavos says this is for everybody. Not just for the righteous. It's hard. Right? We have to remember, for someone who's a Jew or a Jew wannabe, or JIT as I would call it, you got to prepare to do whatever God says in any situation. Any situation. Rabbi Akiva, willing to give up his life. Because he says, as it says in the Shema, first paragraph. You love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul. He said, when can I give up my life? Sanctify God's name. And then he got caught teaching Torah. Right? He got killed. That's how far it went. Not everyone agreed with it. But that's what it meant. But that's what he said. He's willing to live his life that way. Sanctify God's name. So we'd say it's a lot easier dying, sanctifying God's name, than living, sanctifying God's name. It's a lot harder to live to a higher standard. I thought today, it's coming back from learning. So whatever, I'm on the bus, and the bus is going by a certain stop, and they're going by, and they stop, like almost stop short because they saw somebody that want to go on the bus. But the bus driver didn't think anyone want to get on the bus. So what happened? Person gets on the bus, and the bus driver starts screaming at the person. Or sorry, the person stopped screaming at the bus driver. Why didn't you stop? Say, didn't you see me? I flagged you down. What did the bus driver say? You weren't there. You weren't there at the stop. It went back and forth. What are you talking about? I was there. You didn't see me. And the bus driver's like, you weren't there. Back and forth. Back and forth. This went on for a couple minutes. I'm not going to say you know, good or bad about, different types of bus drivers and whatever. So that's a whole discussion, not for now. But if you're visibly an Orthodox Jew, so now, if what they're telling is true, that they were actually at the stop and the bus driver didn't stop, let's say that's true. So they're aggravated, they're screaming at the driver. Now, if the driver is right, that they really weren't there, if they're not at the bus stop, according to the law, you don't have to stop. Even if you see someone running, they're not at the stop. I mean, here it's kind of a game. Bus drivers see someone running, they'll go most of the time. They won't stop. They're at the stop. They're at the bus stop. If you're there, good. If you're not there, they don't have to stop. Not obligated to stop. Most of them won't stop. So if the bus driver's lying, one thing. Let's say for argument's sake, the bus driver's right. And this person was not at the stop. So not only is he right, but this person just made a desecration of God's name. This person's screaming at the bus driver. Bus driver saying you're a liar and this, whatever. But imagine the bus driver's right. And that person is lying. They weren't there. But they want to say, well, no, I was there. I was almost there, whatever. How does that make an Orthodox Jew look? Pretty bad. Pretty darn bad. Now, they could say, listen, I was there. You should have stopped, whatever. And bus driver says you weren't there. Now, if she's telling the truth, okay. He has a right to stop. He's got an obligation to stop. She called the company and said, listen, I was at the stop. You didn't stop. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened before. I'm not going to say how common it is, but there are times buses go zoom. They barely see someone there, and then sometimes they stop short, or sometimes just keep going. And it happens. Definitely happens. Well, let's say in this case, he's right. Or sorry, she's right. Does she have a right to make a stink? Yeah, she does. She has a right to make a stink here. The guy never stopped. Or he stopped the last second and didn't see her. Okay. If he's right, if he 100% is right, then that's a serious problem. First of all, person lied. Second of all, look how it looks in front of everyone else. Now, it could be everyone else will say that person's right. Obviously, the driver's wrong. It'll take sides and this and that. But these are things happen on a daily basis. Right? On a daily basis. Things like this happen. So the question is, how are we viewed? We as Orthodox Jews. And we're our own worst enemy. In certain places, we got a bad reputation, business, certain types of businesses. Ripping people off, other things, gives us a bad name. Everybody. So, spoken about this at length also. So we have to be careful. But what if the person would have admitted, let's say this woman was wrong. Let's just say, he says, you're right. I'm really sorry. Whatever. That can change the whole thing. Now, that person might still think, oh, Orthodox Jews is that and the other thing, maybe. Say you're 100% right. Shouldn't have done it. I really feel bad. They admit that they're wrong. It goes a long way. I'm not going to say across the board, it's going to get a free pass over here. At the same time, there is what to be said if it's serious. If the person just says the words, doesn't mean it. But in certain ways, it's a catch-22. And there's tell another story. It happened a while ago that bus going and passes by this guy and stops because now he saw the person was there. So the person comes, gets on the bus driver starts screaming at the person. No reason. Right? So that doesn't apply over here. He's screaming this, that. He didn't say anything. He got on the bus. He didn't say anything. Didn't mumble anything under his breath. That was right there. The bus driver went on and on. Stopped the bus. He's upset, blah, blah, blah. He didn't do anything wrong. Bus driver got an issue. But now, screams at this person and okay. Maybe a person like that shouldn't deal with people, get a different type of job or whatever. This person didn't do anything wrong. Is that desecration of God's name? No. Bus driver got an issue. But this driver made the claim, said, "Oh, you said this, that, and the other." He didn't say a word. He got on the bus, did not say a word. Saw the whole thing. Could have been used as a witness. But whatever, he didn't say anything. So, so what could he have done in such a situation? Nothing. The guy, the bus driver is hot under the collar, this, that. Okay. It's not his fault. The bus driver should have stopped it. He stopped. Right? Then he stops. The guy gets on the bus. He starts screaming at him for no reason. It's not desecration of God's name. This guy's got an issue. Anger problems, other things, whatever. But, if someone does something wrong, or even if it looks wrong, got to be very, very careful. Very, very, very careful. Because the way it looks out to the outside world, it's going to cause a desecration of God's name. Even though desecration of God's name, we mentioned a number of times, has specific definition. It looks bad. It looks really bad over here. So we got to do whatever it takes to be squeaky clean. It's not easy. I was going up north a while ago, and after the first leg of the trip was like an hour and a half. Another 10 minutes, bus comes. So there's a person there, he's by the door, and he's fiddling around getting his bus card. Okay, I stood there for a little bit. The guy's fiddling. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to go around and go on the bus. Now, interesting enough, this person had a knitted yarmulke on, whatever, probably religious Zionist or let's say modern Orthodox. Obviously, I look very ultra Orthodox, with the hat and the suit or whatever. He's like, what, you couldn't wait 2 minutes? He's like, what, you couldn't wait? Like, what'd you rush? Well, first of all, I want to miss the bus, that's for sure. Right? But he's sitting there fiddling. Why do I have to wait? Why should I have to wait? He's fiddling over here. All right, I have an obligation to wait. Like, what, are you in a rush? Yeah, I wanted to get on the bus. Right? But now it could be, I should have waited. It wasn't like, this person was 75 years old and, is old and decrepit and can barely walk and get on the bus. Guy had a nice, hefty backpack on. I wasn't a youngster, right? Could have been my age or older, right? But it certainly wasn't old and decrepit, right? So yeah, maybe I should have waited, maybe. So this wasn't a secular Jew. Wasn't a secular Jew, but still. Now, was I justified in doing what I did? I think I was. And then I thought about it, and I was like, well, this guy just gave me a look. And got on the bus, gave me another look. So obviously, God wasn't happy with something over here. You say, well, maybe the guy was this, that, and the other thing. Maybe. But see, when someone comes in our path, it's not by chance. God's sending this person in your path for whatever reason. Whatever reason. He put you in the path. He put himself in your path. So now the question is, how you deal with it? Did I expect the guy was going to say anything? No, I stepped on his foot. I pushed him out of the way. I told a story about that last week, whatever. It was like 7 o'clock, bus haven't come, it's traffic. One bus comes, an empty bus, it's like a madhouse. A madhouse. What happened to Derech Eretz? What happened to proper character? People pushing, shoving it on the bus. It's crazy. Yeah, I understand. It's warm out. You want to get home. Whatever. It gives you the right to like plow people over. Thing I say, well, it's also good to work on your patience. Yeah. But you see things, you're like, come on. I'm not going to say the Torah that they learned is worth nothing. I'm not going to say that. Well, so what happened to Derech Eretz? So, if you're on the outside watching this, you get a huge laugh over here. And I was part of it. So I also got, a little bit of a laugh here. And they'd be like, they saw the bus already coming, half a block away. They're already lined up. They're already ready. Okay, I understand you want to get on the bus. But, so what happened to Derech Eretz? What happened, proper character traits? That's what learning is. That's how you implement learning. So, to me, it didn't bother me. Okay, that's the way they want to act. I'm not going to act like that. If I don't get on the bus, okay, I'll wait for the next one. But you have to ask the question, like, what in the world's going on? You say, well, that's the norm. That's what people do. That's what some people do. It's hard to see what people do. It's kind of depressing. You think about it. But we have to be careful. So some people say, wow, being a Jew is an awesome responsibility. It is, and we should take it seriously. But we have to be ever so careful. Ever so careful. Because we do not want secular Jews or non-Jews. We don't want to give them 1 inch to say, Orthodox Jews this, Orthodox Jews that. You don't want to give them an inch. Nothing. You want to make the biggest sanctification of God's name you can. That's what we do. That's what we should do. Because you don't want to give them ammunition. Or someone will say, yeah, they did this, they did that. Yeah, but I didn't. So you make a whole generalization about a certain group of people. We call that being racist. You're right. What they did was wrong. Okay? Now, no one would say, so what does that have to do with me? I didn't do that. Problem is, Jews get all come together. Gemara says, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh. All Jews are intertwined. One Jew does something bad, secular, religious, doesn't matter. We all get blamed. Doesn't happen by any other group. We all get blamed. So that's a problem. And let's say you did something wrong. I'm not going to say well you didn't. All right, let's say you did something. Might not have been, the worst thing in the world. I didn't think trying to bypass someone who's fiddling with the card is going to be a problem. Someone's going to take me to task for such a thing? Could be. I should have just waited. Okay? If it would have been a secular Jew, would a person have said something? Probably not. Now, why would I say such a thing? Why in the world would I say such a thing? Because secular Jews, or even non-Jews, they don't have that standard they have to reach. They just do whatever they want. So when they do whatever they want, they bang someone that, are we expecting them to act in a better way? Why would we? Now, there's some people very meticulous, and they try and do things the right way, in a certain way. Certainly not according to the Torah. But at the same time, what do we see? There's a different standard. They could do the exact same thing and not get blamed. No one's going to call them out. Oh, but if we do it, or a few people don't have any brains do it, they look like Orthodox Jews, we all get blamed. That's the problem. All right, that's discrimination. Clearly discrimination. So we have to try and be impeccable and do things that even if we wouldn't normally do it, maybe we should do it just to, show. They're never going to do such a thing. They would never do such a thing. but it's a catch-22 in a certain way. One minor infraction, you're finished. Jewish people will be finished over here. Right? In other words, they're not gonna get in, they're not gonna get a second chance. Imagine, use this as an example. New York Times, the Holy New York Times, got caught saying, libel against somebody, and they have to apologize. The damage is already done. The apology is probably on page 245. It's so small in print, you need bifocals in order to read it. But the damage is done. What do you do now? You're toast. The damage is done. Right? Same thing. If an Orthodox Jew rips someone off and they get caught, or they did something else, they drive like a maniac, cut someone off the road. I can't imagine that happening, but let's say, what are you going to say? What are you going to answer? I'm not saying they have a right to say all these negative things against the Orthodox community, but you're giving them firepower. You're giving them ammunition. So going to say, but it's very hard to walk that fine line. You're right. But when you're out there, you got to do the best of your ability. That's what you got to do. You don't want to give them any ammunition or anything. None. You have to come out squeaky clean, impeccable. They don't have anything to say. It can be very easy to pick apart secular Jews and non-Jews. Very, very easy. Things they say, what they do, all kinds of things. But you see, it doesn't really matter. You know why? They don't have a Torah they live by. As my Rebbe would say, they live like animals, they die like animals. They're just over-intelligent animals. That's all they are. You see how they live, how they eat, how they speak, what they do. So, do we expect anything from these people? No. We should never expect anything because they don't have a Torah guiding them. They don't have an anchor. What about Orthodox Jews? And I've heard this a number of times. Orthodox Jew gets caught doing X, whatever it is. And a person says, well, I don't do that. And they're supposed to keep the Torah. So if they don't do it, why don't I have to keep it either? Oh, that's also a crock. Why is it a crock? Because if you're a Jew, you got to keep it. It doesn't matter what someone else does. And God's not going to, after 120 years, he's not going to say, oh, this person does that, this person does that. You get a free pass. He's not going to say that. He's going to say, why didn't you do what you're supposed to do? No excuses here. You have to, you're the one over here. No matter what someone else did. And if that person did something wrong, they'll pay the price. But what do I care what they did in respect to you? Oh, I don't do this. So I get a free pass. Who says you get a free pass? Just because you didn't do it doesn't make you righteous. I don't do that, so I'm good. Why are you good? You don't eat kosher. You don't keep Shabbos. You desecrate God's name left and right. Speak Lashon Hara. Do everything wrong. Why do you think you're going to get a free pass over here? Oh, I just want to have the bigger portion of the world to come. Who says you're going to get there? Did you ever read Tractate Sanhedrin on the topic? Chapter 13. Right? It says every Jew's going to have a portion of the world to come. And then it digresses and says people lost their portion of the world to come. So who says you're going to get there? Right? So, it's a chutzpah in a way. You're going to say, well, I don't have to do everything. I'll just have a smaller portion. Well, he does a great job, you won't be there if you don't repent. You ate chametz on Passover, and 11 prana, you get spiritually cut off. You did it on purpose. I don't care what you know, what you don't know. Right? There are things you're going to pay a price. Why? I'm going to have a smaller portion. Yeah. It's going to be so small, you're not even going to get anything. You won't even be the dust under the feet of the righteous. That's even a level. You don't see anything, you don't hear anything, but at least, you made it to the game. There are people who don't make it. Imagine, it's game 7, NBA finals, you're stuck watching at home, but somebody's there. Somebody's at least there. They might be, behind an obstructed view. They have to look like this, look like that, but they're there at the game. At least they're there. You're not even there. You're stinking on the couch. You're watching on the couch. So who says you're going to get there? You got to be on a certain level, the Ramchal says. You have to have a minimal level, he says in Derech Hashem. in order to get there. If you don't meet those requirements, you don't get there. Gemara in the Avodah Zarah 2b 3a says, you don't prepare of Shabbos, you don't eat on Shabbos. You don't prepare in this world. Well, why should you have anything in the next world? Oh, because every Jew has a port. No, you can lose it. You don't prepare. Why should you get? Why should you get the benefit of doing nothing? If you tell me you have other mitzvahs that they've done and they merit a portion, even if it's a small portion, okay. But if they didn't do anything, why they get anything? Why should they? The ultimate in chutzpah. It's kind of like non-Jews, not in the process of conversion, want to keep Shabbos. Doesn't belong to you. You have no connection to it. 3 things that are assigned between God and the Jewish people. One of them is circumcision. One of them is tefillin, phylacteries. One of them is Shabbos. It's not to say, I want a piece. I want a part of it. Who says? Gemara says, non-Jew keeps Shabbos like a Jew. Obviously, person who's a JIT, a Jew in training, has to do something to break Shabbos. But now you and your great grandparents, they all rejected the Torah. So now all of a sudden you want to tell me, well, if I would have been there, I wouldn't have rejected Torah. Well, who cares what you would have done? Nobody cares. Fact is, it's been sealed. You want to convert? Great. You don't? Okay. Those are your choice. But now you want to say, if I don't convert or I can't convert, then you want to say, I want a piece of Shabbos. It's between God and the Jewish people. Right? The ultimate in chutzpah. To say, okay, they rejected it. Fine. They reject. Now you want to say, I want it. It's too late. Can't have it. Doesn't belong to you. Right? So it doesn't belong to you. Finished. So a Jew, same thing. I mean, a little bit different. But a Jew's going to say, okay, I might have not have done like you, or might not have done like this, but I still deserve. Why? I'd like to know why. You did everything to spit in God's face. You look at all the vidui, which we haven't got to yet. All the confessions, tell me which ones you have regret that you've done. All the things that talk about speech, you regret. You spoke badly against people. You regret. You did this, you did that. You willfully sinned. You regret that. And no remorse. And no regrets. No, I'm just there to be entertained. So somebody who says that, what are they going to have in the next world? God, I need the best entertainer. You're the best entertainer. Right? So I should have a point. Why? Why should that be? Because God's going to have mercy. Isn't one of God's attributes judgment? Yeah, but, God has mercy. See, I'll just throw this out there, like totally off what we're speaking about, but I'll mention one thing. Noah is called, they say it's the floods of Noah. The flood of Noah. Why? They say it's his fault. He didn't bring anybody back. Building an ark for 120 years. People say, Noah, what are you doing? So I'm building an ark. It's going to be a big flood. They look up, San Diego, 75 and sunny all year round. They're like, good luck. Oh, they'll die. They don't do anything to bring them back. And at the last second, God throws them in the ark. They say that Noah had belief in God, not belief in God. What do you mean? Isn't he a prophet? Didn't he save himself and his family? Even if he didn't save anyone else? So what was the mistake? Did Noah think God wasn't going to bring the flood? No. Noah knew God's going to bring the flood. What did he think? He thought you could play one attribute over the other. He thought that God's attribute of mercy would overcome him and it would step off his throne of judgment to go to mercy. That's why it's called he didn't have faith. Or he lacked faith over here. At some level. The reason being is because he thought you could play one attribute of God over the other. He didn't. Didn't work. Now, there are times we can invoke God's attribute of mercy. But if there's already a decree made, it may not help. In some cases, let's say in the story of Esther, it helped. By the destruction of the second temple, didn't help. Or the first temple didn't help. It depends, the decree is made in blood or it's not, and whether God's going to have mercy here or not. But how can somebody say, well, I'm going to be okay. I may not get the highest portion, but I'm going to be okay. Which says you're going to get anything. You don't prepare Erev Shabbos, you don't get to eat on Shabbos. But again, we have to be careful. We have to be absolutely careful with what we do. We do not want to give secular Jews or non-Jews any ammunition to say anything. We have to be impeccable. You're going to say it's hard to live that way. Okay, I'm not saying it's easy. That's what we have to do. Even if it's things we wouldn't normally do. If we're around other people, even if normally we wouldn't do it, we got to be extra careful. We got to be extra careful. So I didn't get very far here, but I'm going to take some questions. Someone here points out that they once learned even the smallest inconvenience. So you're looking for your keys in your pocket and not getting it, right? Or let's say you're fiddling in your pocket for change, you don't come out with the right change. It's also a punishment, suffering, right? It's also a form of suffering. Obviously, there are different levels. Well, let's say you have change in your pocket and you take out the wrong amount or, whatever. That's also a form of suffering. Definitely true, right? Definitely true. That it doesn't have to be a huge thing here. It can even be something minor, right? Because something, seemingly minor, but it's also called suffering. So one thing we have to remember, someone here points out, people say things or whatever where, you don't necessarily have it coming or whatever, right? God is using them. That's true. God's using them like a stick. It's, whenever that happens, we have to think that's the first thing we have to think. Problem is, when things happen, we react. It's called a knee-jerk reaction. That's what we do. And we may be justified and say it's wrong and it's this and it's that. You're right. Well, we missed the bigger picture. First thing a person says, God, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to work on my evil inclination. Unbelievable. Right? You do that, it already brings things down a little bit. Could be it brings it down a lot, depends what it is. Right? But that should be, the mentality. Then why we ever get upset? You're going to say, person caused damage, person, whatever. Well, we're not saying that person didn't do that. And they're going to get judged and God's going to take care of them. But is that the first thing? What's the first thing I think of? First thing a person thinks of is probably every 4-letter word, that's coming out of your mind or out of your mouth. Right? Even if you don't say it, that's already a level. Another level is not to think it. And if would you be dancing? Say, wow, what a golden opportunity. Unbelievable. To work on patience. That's where we have to be holding. You're going to say, come on, it's impossible. Not impossible. If someone's in this process for however long and they're working on not speaking Lashon Hara, do they think at the beginning they could do it? No. I'll answer that. No. Why couldn't they do it? Why would they think it's impossible? Because that's the way they are. And that's the way people speak. And it's 100% true in all this. Justified in a million different ways. But a person thought they could actually work on it. You'll think, it's too hard. So many rules, people say. So hard to keep everything in track. You're right. 100%. Doesn't matter. But once we start somewhere, we make little steps here, little steps there. It's not such a small step. Definitely not such a small step. Because it changes the way we think. Totally changes the way we think. If a person is working on themselves not speaking Lashon Hara, and they learn in the laws, 2 laws a day, let's say, and they hear other people speak Lashon Hara, then they realize, oh, how could this person say that? But you weren't any better. But now you have a higher awareness. It's a whole different thing. It's a whole different world. Someone points out, that they feel that every second of every day we're getting tested. Life is one big, humongous test in different ways. Sometimes we may have it easier. Sometimes, maybe not. Everything's a test. The person's married, tested with that, kids, parnasa, livelihoods, all kinds of things. And it could be a lot of these things all at once, which makes life even more interesting. Right? So the question is, how we deal with it and whether we get beaten down by it or we grow from it. Right? Life is one huge test. So the Ramchal says that's what we're here for. We're here to toil. We're here to work. We're here to strive. That's what we're here for. Sometimes we'll do better, maybe sometimes not. Sometimes the tests are because we we did it ourselves. Right? And a person may say after 120 years, God, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? God says, I didn't do anything. I didn't tell you to do this. You transgressed, Kaufman's 614th principle. Don't be stupid. I didn't tell you to do that. You did it. I just didn't stop you. If a person wants to go in the right direction, God will help you. The Gemara said, you want to go in the wrong direction, He won't stop you. So there are things that we're tested, God puts in our way. And there are other things we do to ourselves. Now, if we do it to ourselves, we can't blame anyone but ourselves. The question is how we react to things. That's what life is. Now, if we have a whole different mentality, we grew up a certain way. We lived a certain way. And now, we've seen the lights. Now we understand what absolute truth is. And even if a person in that process, 2 months, 6 months, a week, doesn't their mentality change at some level? Don't they look back if someone's been in this process however long? You want to gauge where a person's holding, right? Where you're holding. Imagine, let's say someone's been in the process for a number of years. Look where you were before that. Tremendous higher awareness a person should have. Doesn't mean they're holding at the highest level. But see, they've worked already on how they speak to others. They worked already, they're still working on the fact they don't want to curse. They don't want to speak Lashon Hara. They want to work on other bad character traits. That's it. That's a huge thing. Because most people do not have that higher awareness. Most people don't care. Most people, it's ketchup on mustard on my hot dog. And the answer is relish. That's the answer, relish. No, I'm kidding. Right? Someone wanted to know, what's the answer? Is it mustard or ketchup? I don't know. I think it's mustard, but I could be wrong. In any case, if people are not holding there and they don't care, okay. But if you've already come out of the dark, you've come out of darkness, and now you're coming into light, doesn't matter where you are. You definitely know that where you were before was bad. Different levels. Now you have a higher awareness. If you have a higher awareness, then even if you're not necessarily holding by it, sometimes, you do fail, other times not. But if you look where you're holding 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a couple of years ago, it's a different world. Totally different world. Totally different world. But yeah, every day is a test. Every day, and the test can be in any number of different things. And they can be a combination of things. It can be totally combination of things. Someone asks, no, I'd have to say amen when a Jew says a blessing. No. They certainly have no obligation whatsoever. Yeah, let me see. Someone asks, when is a Jew deemed an apostate? That's a good question. Because there's a question also, lump these two together, and that is, why is it commonly told that there's no hell that lasts up for 12 months? Is it not true? If a person, let's say, doesn't believe in heaven and hell, that makes them a heretic. The Rambam says the laws of repentance. I'm going to hit both of these at the same time. If the Rambam holds, if a Jew believes the entire Torah is true except for one verse, he's a heretic. If he believes all Moses' prophecy is true except one, he's a heretic. Right? He's got a whole laundry list. Right? Of what's considered someone who's a heretic. So, if they say there's not going to be anything as resurrection of the dead, one of the Rambam's 13 principles, he's out as a Jew, unless he repents. Coming to the Messiah, you don't believe, he's out. Idolatry, he's out. Makes someone a heretic. But I'm saying, if a person believes in everything the Torah says except one thing, even, the writings, the prophets, and all that, one verse they don't believe, they're out. According to the Rambam. Now, if a person would say, I don't believe in heaven and hell, that's also, it's also heresy. 100%. Because they're saying, I don't believe in divine judgment. It's also one of the 13 principles of faith. Reward and punishment. Clear. So if we don't believe in heaven and hell, and that there are repercussions for our actions, which a lot of this according to Kabbalah, then yeah, that makes someone a heretic also. Now, there is an issue. Someone here says, that there's no hell. Well, that's not true. It's, what does hell represent? What does Gehenna represent? It's a cleansing process. The soul has to, I don't know, it's like going through a car wash, right? It's got to come out squeaky clean. If, let's say, that person suffered enough in this world, they don't have to go through that, but most likely we're going to have to go at some level, right? We're going to have to suffer at some level. So usually, a person, let's say for a parent, they say Kaddish, they say the morning's prayer for 11 months. Because that's how long the soul is there. Could be a shorter amount of time, but in general, let's say it's 11 months. If the soul is really evil, it's there for 12 months. Right? But usually someone is not so evil is the whole question, even the 12th month, whether you should say the morning's prayer during that month, or just do it every other day, or once a day, or just learn Mishnayos, learn Mishnah for them, or there are a lot of different opinions here. Number of different opinions. But that's why a person doesn't normally say Kaddish for 12 months. Why? Because most people, then you're showing that person's evil. Right? So what happens if the person who died gave a command to say for 12 months? Question is, they have an obligation to uphold what they said. Some would say, yeah, you have to uphold it. Others would say, no, you don't do it every day, but, you do it once a day, or, once every other day, or something like that. Now, the issue comes where I mentioned last week, the Beis HaLevi, who was the father of Chaim Soloveitchik, of blessed memory, one of the Torah giants, more than 200 years ago. The Beis HaLevi would put his fingers over fire every day, not including Shabbos or a festival, to feel what hell was going to be like. And by the end of his life, his hands were basically black. I don't know too many people doing that today. And no one, I don't think, would say to do that. But he wanted to feel what hell was going to be. Now, let's ask the $1 million question. We understand it's brought down, talks about the fires of hell. Now, I've heard some people say, and again, I have to really see the context, but if someone's going to say, wow, the fires of hell, come on, it's an allegory. Well, it's hard to understand. Let's make clear. You're talking about a soul. If you're talking about a soul, the soul's not human. That everyone would agree. Soul is not human. Now, if the soul is spiritual, then how could you take a fire and hit the soul? It's a legitimate question. We're not talking heresy. How exactly does that work? So again, this would be Kabbalah 101a. If you were to ask me a simple question, how could fire penetrate a soul? Fire is something physical. Soul is something spiritual. Physical shouldn't have any effect on something spiritual in general. Now, if you say, well, there's no such thing, and there's no such thing as fire hitting the soul, that is a problem. Because our sources say otherwise. Now, I heard someone say this, sort of joked about it, like, you really think fire's going to hit a soul? It's going to destroy a soul? Something physical, spiritual? Has to be understood. Doesn't mean it's not true. God can do anything. God could put a soul back in his body. There's a story of somebody committing suicide by jumping in front of a car. And the punishment for that soul was to come back in the same body and keep going over and over and over and over again, the same scenario. Kind of like a bad Freddy Krueger movie. Now, how does that work? How exactly does God do that? Because people tell the story of a certain road, a certain place. They're driving down, they see a figure of a body, and then all of a sudden, clunk, 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 clunk. They stop. They realize they hit something. They look underneath, there's no body. How does that work? It's a good question. Can God not put the body in the soul, bring it back to this world, and have this happen again and again? We see that's true by Titus. Titus, when he died, gave a command, or before he died, that he didn't want the God of the Jewish people to judge him. So he had his body burned to ashes, scattered all over the seven seas. The Gemara says, what does God do? Every single day, he takes his ashes, puts them back together. As a person, he burns them again for eternity. That's his punishment. Now, that Gemara over there, it's not like, this is a parable. This is what I think happened. Like, they brought up the soul, and this is what the soul said. Brought up JC, other souls. The Gemara says, so if God can take a person, gather his ass, so he's dead, right? Titus is dead, been dead for a long time. His ashes scattered all over. So you want to tell me God can't put the ashes together and burn them? He can. Burn his body again. Go through it every single day for eternity. Now, I can't imagine the pain that is. Now, again, someone's going to say, well, what about the fire in the soul? I don't know what that means per se. That means it doesn't happen. Because there are sources according to Kabbalah speak about it. So the problem is if someone sort of jokes about it, you really think there's a reward, punishment like that, and the soul's gonna, soul's insatiable. Soul simply can't get destroyed. Oh, it could. God could just destroy it if you wanted to. So, if you're going to tell me someone's going to joke about it, like, come on, you really think? God loves everyone. No one's ever going to get punished. Really? Torah doesn't say that. So I can understand that would get under people's skin. And that would be heresy to say, I don't believe in heaven and hell. I don't believe that's going to be. They read this reward for our actions. Yeah. But the fact that there's going to be this place where souls are going to suffer, I don't believe that. Yeah, that's a problem. Now, there are people who've had out-of-body experiences that have told horrific stories of souls that are screaming and suffering and this and that, but they're a pure soul. How does that work? As my Rebbe would say, I've never met anyone been in that world and come back. But here, you can say whatever you want. There is evidence. We have evidence according to our sources also. But I don't want to point out. Someone's going to make fun of that. Okay, really? I understand where it comes from. Because if you had something that has no form, Casper the Friendly Ghost, he's a ghost, let's say, and you put fire to a ghost, anything happen? Nothing happens. I mean, unless it's Ghostbusters, but like in general, any of these things, it's not going to affect it. How can it affect it? It's invisible. Something seemingly invisible. But we have sources say they are affected. And they do suffer. Right? One example is when the soul gets judged. You know how we got on to this. When the soul gets judged and they see their life flash before their eyes. So, according to Kabbalah, what is that? That's a form of atonement because the soul feels embarrassed of what it's done. See, the soul cannot say, I didn't do it. Because anyone's had an out-of-body experience, what's the first thing they say? They see their life flash before their eyes. Every last thing within 2 minutes. They see every last thing that they've done. They thought, whatever. Just when you thought it was safe to read National Geographic in the bathroom, think again! So what happens? That's embarrassment. Total embarrassment. Now, I would ask the question, how can the soul get embarrassed? Soul's not human. Right? So who are we? It gets even deeper here. Are we just the body, that, moves around does other things? Or is it really the soul that controls the body? What's the problem? Person got to get upstairs. God's going to say, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? So the soul's going to say, I couldn't do anything. I was stuck in the body. The body did everything. And what's the body going to say? The body's going to make a very good claim. The body's going to say, I couldn't function without the soul. That's true. If the soul's not in the body, there is no body. The body dies. Soul comes out of the body dies. Body can't live without the soul. So what does God do? God thinks about it and says, okay, I'm going to take the body, put the soul in it, I'm going to judge you both. See, but that pure soul knows what truth is now in that world. The soul cannot say, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Maybe soul try and justify, even though God knows what the soul is going to say and whatever. So whatever it is, that soul at that point, however this works according to Kabbalah, that soul is going to feel like 100% a piece of dirt. Why is the soul going to feel like a piece of dirt? Because it's going to be, now it knows absolute truth. And now it knows absolute truth, it's going to be totally embarrassed. Because now it's given an accounting. And now it's going to be judgment. So you can't say, I didn't have my hand in the cookie jar. Your hand was in the cookie jar. Yeah, if you don't understand, it was like this, like that. And God's going to say, bink. Got to knock that off. Bink. Got to knock off this other thing. So that is a form of atonement. Not full atonement. Why is that a form of atonement? Now the question is how that works exactly, but it's a form of atonement because the person is totally embarrassed. They're standing in front of the King of Kings or flying around or whatever they're doing, in front of the King of Kings, knowing they've done this thing and that thing and the other thing and 1.5 million other things wrong. All that soul wants to do is find a place to hide. That's all the soul wants. Can't hide. So what happens? the soul feels bad, really bad about what it's done. So that is somewhat of an atonement. It's not full atonement by any stretch. But that soul may have to get punished. It may have to suffer in other ways. But see, for us to try and understand what that is, without understanding how the world works and the spiritual world and, and Kabbalah and all that, I'd advise everyone to read Derech Hashem, The Way of God by the Ramchal. And he goes through spiritual forces, how they work. Reward and punishment, how it works. He doesn't go into all this detail, about, suffering in the next world or whatever. But he says, you're going to go there and you're going to pay a price. It's a cleansing process. So how does the fire of hell affect the soul? I can't tell you. But I'm not saying it's not true. However it works. But now, why do I bring this up? Because maybe someone's going to say, you really think God's going to do that? How can a soul ever be caught by fire and suffer? You really think that's what it means? I don't know. You want to explain Kabbalah? Let me explain it. How it works in that realm. And what suffering is like for a pure soul. How does it feel it? I know, I heard brought down, that, when a person goes in the ground, they get eaten up, the soul feels it. What does that mean? I don't know, but it's like taking like a small needle, making a prick here, a prick there, a prick there. The body decomposing is atonement also, because the soul has to die. Sorry, the body has to die. Because after they ate from the tree of knowledge, it's exactly what had to happen. Right? We have to go, that's atonement. Death is atonement, not full atonement. But it is atonement to a certain extent. But for us, so the point is, now someone's going to say, I don't believe in heaven and hell, and you really think the soul's going to get burned? Yeah, that's heresy. That is heresy. Now, it could be there are different ways to explain it. Not that I don't believe in heaven and hell. But maybe the fire, which is probably wrong. Well, let's say it's not, what does it mean to be burnt? Is it an allegory? Probably not an allegory. But let's say there are different ways to look at it that are viable options according to Torah, according to Kabbalah. Let's say, does that make someone a heretic? Doesn't make them a heretic. If they're saying something that goes against, it says doesn't exist or it's not going to happen or whatever, that's a different issue. But if there are different ways to look at it in the proper framework, let's make clear. I don't want anyone to call me a heretic, right? If it's within the proper framework of Torah, of the rabbis, etc., or Kabbalah, whatever it is, Hasidus, then it's legit. If it goes against that, that's a problem. Right? If someone were to say, I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but homosexuality is not the person's fault. Well, whose fault is it? We're going to get there. Leviticus chapter 18 one day, next, 70 years, who knows what. Right? But, Torah says it's abomination. They act as abomination. Oh, they were born that way. Really? A lot of people born, that are cheap. They have a cheap gene. They don't like to give charity. There are people that have anger genes. Lazy genes, doing things by rote genes. You're going to say, the doctor once told me, yeah, they've isolated this gene also. It just means you have more of an affinity to do it. God doesn't want you to act on it. Right? But if you have, an anger gene, let's say, God also doesn't want you to act on it. This is different. No, it's a desire. It's a perverse desire. I don't think there's any question about that, at least according to us. But, someone cannot come out and say, that you really think, it's not their fault. You think God's going to zap them? Yeah, I do. I definitely believe person who acts that way, they're in trouble. They're 100%, they're toast. My language. They're out of here, as we would say in Boston. They're finished. Doesn't mean some people can have more of an affinity. I agree. So what? It's like any bad character trait. You fill in the blank of bad character traits. That would make someone an absolute heretic. That's not really what it means. What are you, a Reformed Jew? It means not what it means. I know someone from the age of 3 or 4, I knew this person was going to be homosexual. Well, very good. Okay. So what? No, but it's not their fault. So they have a certain disposition. That was the word I was looking for. So they have a certain disposition. Does that mean they can't overcome it? They have more of a disposition. Okay. Doesn't mean we give them a free pass. And say, well, too bad. That's the way they were. That's the way they were born. They can't help themselves. Of course they can. They don't want to. They don't want to. Might take a lot of therapy. There are psychologists out there who can work with these type of people. Certainly I've heard of. Can rehabilitate them. Not impossible. I would say it's a hard thing. Okay, but why is that different than any other bad character trait? Why is that any different than anger? Person born with certain level of anger, maybe more than others. Or person born and part of their DNA is to be a miser. And they don't want to help others when they have the ability to. So I guess, come on, that's why is it different? We have to learn to help others. Chesed, do acts of loving kindness. That's one of the 3 things that makes a Jew who they are. They're Bashanim, Rachmanim, and Gemuz Chasadim. They get embarrassed easily. They have compassion for others, and they do a lot of chesed for others. Acts of loving kindness. Those are 3 things that characterize who Jews are. Mean we're perfect? No. Does it mean we don't have what to work on? We do. We're wired a certain way, and we do things to ourselves as well. 100% we do things to ourselves, not just God over here. But if we have something to overcome and we're wired that way, God can say, I didn't tell you to act that way. I didn't tell you to act on it. But you wired me that way. Good. So you have a disposition to that. Someone else has a disposition to something else. You're not liable here. Why do you get a free pass? I'm making it easy. I'm not saying you did it to yourself. God did it to you. He wired you that way. Okay. People have different things they have to work on. We all have things we have to work on. Some things might be easier, some things might be more difficult, but we all have dispositions, good and bad. There are people out there who like to stay up late at night. Now, what's the problem with staying up late at night? If you're a guy, you got to get up early and pray. No, I'm too tired and I'm this. God, I don't care. You got to get up and pray. That matzah, 20 pounds and, in 35 seconds, you got to whistle Dixie into the moonwalk. I don't like the matzah. It's too crunchy. It affects my stomach in a negative way. What's God going to say? Carpent language. Shut up and eat the matzah. I don't care. Shut up and eat it. That's what you got to do. Do we have certain dispositions? Everybody does. And that depends on the source of our soul. We got a lot of stuff from our parents, right? Good or bad. Could have come from other places also. But we can't make excuses. Just because a person may have been born with X, Y, or Z. God said, I didn't tell you to do that. But you're going to say, but I have a disposition. God's going to say, shut up with your disposition. I don't care about your disposition. I gave it to you. So deal with it. Figure out how to deal with it. No one's saying it's easy, but you don't get a free pass either. That's called pass the buck. That's called the 3rd and long, or what we call a punt, or 4th and long, let's say better. That's a football analogy. American football. Anyway, I digress here. Point is, we can't make excuses. Right? But if someone goes outside those boundaries and says, I can do what I want with this, and that doesn't really mean that, and it goes against major principles of the Torah, that makes them a heretic. Totally makes them a heretic. Somebody, let's say, someone desecrates Shabbos. A Jew desecrates Shabbos. Death penalty, gets spiritually cut off. Does that make them a heretic? Doesn't make them a heretic, per se. They're a sinner, for sure. But if they deny God, and they say there's no God, no resurrection of the dead, all these other major principles of Judaism, that makes them a heretic. They don't believe in heaven and hell. That's a Jewish concept. I spoke once. I was interviewing for a job in the States, spoke at a Jewish community center. I spoke about reincarnation. First thing I said was, I just want everyone here to know, reincarnation is a Jewish concept. 3 people fainted. It's a Jewish concept. They thought they were shocked. They thought it was from the Hindus, from others. But where do you think they got it from? And they messed it up in the process. Where'd they get it from? They got it from us. Absolutely a Jewish concept. Again, the Ramchal and Derech Hashem speaks about this. So there are things we go through because maybe our soul has to go through. It has nothing to do with us per se. But our soul has to get fixed up to go through certain things. Now, is that my fault? Not my fault. But you still may have to go through it. So God forbid, if a child, God forbid, is born mentally challenged, is it the child's fault? It's not the child's fault. Why not? Because they're not liable. Child's underage, 12 or 13, for a boy, underage. They're not guilty. They didn't do anything wrong. So it can't be a punishment for them. Can't be a punishment for them. So it's got to be a punishment for the soul. The soul has to go through this for different reasons. Whatever it is. So a soul can come back, and most of our souls have already come back. Twice, 3 times, maybe a maximum 4 times, I've heard. And probably this is the last run. Whatever we have to try and fix up in this world for that, for our soul. Okay. But again, just because, we're born into a certain family, do we have control? No. Mishnah and Pirkei Avos, as our father says, we're born against our will, we die against our will. Parentheses, Kaufman would say you still have to live. Do I have any control of my siblings are? No. Socioeconomic situation? No. So we're dealt with a certain hand. You're playing poker, let's say a person got all single digits. You lose. It's a bad hand. Some people could be dealt with a better hand, but doesn't mean it's perfect by any stretch. Many, many things about everything we're not in control. Not in control. So there are things that happen to us in this world, no control whatsoever. Now, nothing to do with us. It has to do with our soul. A lot of it has to do with what we do. There are repercussions certainly for what we do. It's not just, God put it in the soul and this is what happened. Yesh for yesh, there's this and there's that. What's the percentage? I can't answer. But the bottom line is, there are plenty of things a person could do or say that makes them into a heretic. Heaven and hell, it's something we have to believe in. That means there's reward and punishment. There's a spiritual world. There's this world, there's the next world. That's pretty crucial. Reward and punishment is one of the 13 principles of faith. Now, if a person says, well, I'm not sure what it means that the fire is going to, make the soul suffer and all that, that doesn't make them a heretic. They're just saying they don't understand how it works. Okay. I'm with that also. I also don't necessarily know how that works or what suffering like that is. But if a person's going to come out and say, come on, you really believe, in all loving God would do that? Well, it's called reward and punishment. There are repercussions for our actions. And there could be serious repercussions. And the soul could suffer a lot. A lot. Certainly according to Kabbalah. Tremendous amount. How does it all work? The Ramchal speaks about it. But again, he's just scratching the surface. You're not going into all these details. He's telling you in general terms. He's telling you in general terms how it works. So, but if a person would say, I don't believe in that, or I don't believe in these major tenets, they're a heretic. Right? The Rambam's got a clear list. An absolute clear list of what that is. Someone says, well, couldn't it be just an unforeseen occurrence? No, there's nothing, no such thing. That's what Amalek believes. There are things that just happen. Chance happenings. We don't believe there are chance happenings. So you're going to say there's no chance happening. What about predestination? So you have to look on video I did on Tanakh Talk on controversial issues about predestination. We have free will. We're the only people, only species that has free will. Animals don't have free will. Plants don't have free will. Stars, the moon, they don't have free will. They have to do exactly what God says. They can't act out. There's no such thing. So chance things, we don't understand when things happen, how they happen, whatever. But there's no such thing as a chance occurrence. There's no such thing. Right? That we don't believe. That's what Amalek believes. Stuff happens because it happens. At the same time, we try and take stock of what happens. Because the Gemara says everything happens for the sake of the Jewish people. So we have to, we have to see how all this works itself out. We don't always understand. And also in our own lives, we can probably connect the dots. This happened, that happened, whatever. We can probably connect a lot of dots, see how we got to where we are. So I always say in my own life, I went from America to Israel, Israel to Chile, Chile to Lakewood, New Jersey back to Israel. So there's certain things I can see clear, why certain things might have happened. Chile, I have no idea. None. Not even going to try and figure it out. Doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. It's a stopover. I don't know. Maybe it's just for my wife to give birth and have an easy, much easier experience than another place. Okay, maybe. Maybe that's the only thing. I have no idea. Never going to figure it out. Other things, I have certain ideas about that I think are probably true. But a lot of things we can't answer for. We don't know why this happened or the other thing happened or, etc. Again, a lot of it has to do with what we do. But there are things where you're going to say, I didn't do this. I'm not in control of this. So why did it happen? Why did it happen? Because God put it in our path. For whatever reason. Someone there points out hell is humiliation. Right? Humiliation. Again, it talks about the soul suffering. That's part of it. I definitely think it's part of it. Right? But other things I know, it's more than that. There's such a thing called, I'll just throw this out there, there's such a thing called kafakela. Kafakela, one explanation is that the soul doesn't get its true rest and it gets slingshot before it gets destroyed by other spiritual, these angels of destruction. Doesn't get its full rest, it gets slingshot from one end of the universe to the other, running for its life. That's the kind of suffering. Doesn't get its true rest, doesn't even get judged in hell yet. It's too busy running for its life. So what does that mean exactly? It suffers, tremendous amount of suffering. So, again, I think people get way too caught up on this. I'm just, speaking it out here. I think it's good we understand certain things. We understand that, there's reward and punishment. We may pay a serious price for what we've done. True. I think that's where it should end. Right? I mentioned this last week also. I think it's just, some people run with this idea, scaring people, which I don't think is necessarily a bad idea. But a lot of things that, are a lot of things according to Kabbalah. Suffering, though, that the soul can go through, that's real. What it means that the fire hits it and this, okay, that's, it's Kabbalah 101b. And again, if someone's going to make fun of that, and someone's going to come on, you really think the soul, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. And they'll, the clothe it up in fancy philosophical language doesn't mean anything. That's also a problem. But if you're going to tell me, let's say there are legitimate interpretations of what it means, according to Kabbalah, according to Hasidus, according to other things, then that's okay, because that's within the parameters of Torah. But if someone says, come on, you really think the soul, fire is going to affect the soul? Come on, get alive. That's a problem. That is definitely a problem. If there are legitimate interpretations that go according to what the Torah says, very good. It's not a contradiction. It could be different ways of looking at it within the parameters of Torah. If it's not within the parameters of Torah, it's a different thing. Someone asked, oh, interesting question. Kabbalah into tefillin. Yeah, there are a lot of things that tefillin, phylacteries, they say is halacha Moshe Messina. Right? It comes from Moshe from Sinai, meaning, right, why do they have to be black? Why have to be so many compartments in? A lot of these things are, God said to Moshe, Moshe passed it down. Right? The question is, it's being related to the Kaaba, which is a cube and an Islamic deity, and they literally worship a black cube in Mecca, in the cubes of Saturn. Okay. Person presented is Judaism doctrine, these pagan prayer. I have no idea. It sounds a little bit far-fetched to me, but if that would be the case, let's say that's true. Let's say they're claiming that we got it from the pagans, right? We got it from the Muslims, let's say. When did the Muslims come? Muslims came after us, right? If they came after us and oral law was passed down generation to generation, and that oral law says, okay, Moshe got it Mount Sinai, so who's copying who? They're going to say we got it from them. We came first. Right? So we're doing a pagan thing. Why would we be doing a pagan thing? According, I haven't seen it, but according to them, so they have to show, well, we came first. Well, didn't God give Moshe Rabbeinu the Torah and oral law at the same time? He gave God the Torah and oral law at the same time. If that is the case, then these laws of tefillin came well before Muhammad. Came well before the Quran. Right? So if that's true, then they're just, they're after us. So they say, oh, we copied them. We didn't copy them. We came first. It's just that oral law was written down later. So if it's written down later, it doesn't mean that these laws weren't already there. So if Islam came later, so what do I care? And they want to make us look bad. Okay. And they're saying we got it from them. That's not the case. We came first. It's clear we came first. Oral law came first. This wasn't written down then. Moshe Rabbeinu for 40 years, what was he doing in the desert? 38 years, whatever. What was he doing? Explaining all the mitzvahs. That's what took so long. If you only had to explain the Torah to the Jewish people, okay, there were like 3 million people in the desert, great. How long would it take them to organize and teach all the commandments? Only 613. How long would it take? 10 years? 20 years? You set up, thousands of people. He teaches one, someone else teaches another. They get thousands of teachers. How long can that take? It's not going to take 38 years. 38 years is way too long. So what was Moshe Rabbeinu teaching them? He's teaching them moral law. That's what he's teaching them. So that came well before Islam. Well before Islam. Right? One possible answer. Someone asks, oh, very good. Right? Weren't Aaron's souls burnt up by the fire? Yeah. Well, was it physical fire? Spiritual fire. It wasn't physical per se. They got burned, they took them out, dragged them out. But the bodies weren't burned. Not like their bodies burned to a crisp, it was they got burned on the inside. Right? And their soul came out. So the spiritual fire could have been physical also. It just didn't burn the outside of the body. Right? It certainly could have been physical as well. Someone imagines 12 months in the next world is not the same as 12 months in this world. I don't know. We do 12 months. The soul was in that world for 12 months. I don't know if it's not the same. I don't know if we don't take that the same, literally. You're right. It depends where you are in the universe. how long a day is and whatever. So yeah, it could be, but spiritual world's a different thing. That's a different thing. Right, someone points out there are many things you can do to lose your portion of the world to come. Now let's keep in mind one thing. We're trying to do things to the best of our ability. It's hard to imagine in certain ways the person worked their whole life and they lose their portion of the world to come in one shot because they stole from somebody or whatever. I would agree that we're held to a higher standard. The closer you are to the king, you can get burnt. Very true. Doesn't mean you're going to lose your portion of the world to come. It depends what you've done. Totally depends what you've done. If you cause, again, Moshe Rabbeinu did one minor infraction. Very hard to understand without getting into it. So he didn't have a merit to go in the land of Israel. Didn't lose his portion of the world to come. Right? A person has to do something pretty egregious to lose their portion of the world to come. In other words, if they've been trying to keep Torah mitzvahs, they failed here, they failed there, whatever. But the reality is you got more mitzvahs than transgression. You made it. Now, the transgression is going to get weighed where you're holding, how much you know, different things. So one transgression could knock out a lot of mitzvahs. True? Very, very true. And you spoke lashon hara against someone, they get all your mitzvahs, unless you're repentant. Right? So, yeah. But, if a person is on the right track and they're trying and they're working hard, they'll get something. They should get something. If they did something egregious that knocks out a lot of their mitzvahs and they lose, could be. But, if a person prays every day, they make blessings, they do there are hundreds and thousands of mitzvahs the person has. Again, could a person do something and lose a lot of them? Yeah. Give one example. Let's say someone, God forbid, got in a car accident. So God saved them. But it's like playing Pac-Man or playing any of these games. So he took one of your lives, took like 2 of your spare lives. So here he had 1.5 million, 3 billion mitzvahs or whatever. So he took 1.5 million away because you didn't die over here. So he took some of your merits. That can happen. That certainly can happen. But at the same time, if a person's going in the right path, I would say that, there's a good chance they should have a portion of the world to come. There's a definitely better than average chance. And it'd be kind of depressing if you think about it. You work so hard for so many years, and God says, no, you don't work hard enough. Next. That'd be kind of cruel. Again, it depends what a person does. A person can do one transgression or a number of transgressions, but they're weighted very highly. Then a person loses a lot of mitzvahs in the process. Could very well be, but depends on a lot of different factors. If a person, someone points out, very true. If a person's really evil, they're getting more than 12 months. Make no mistake, they're going to get a lot more. God will take care of them. They'll get a heck of a lot more, depending on what they've done. True. Someone there says about homosexuality, people were sexually abused as children. And then it comes out. Is there any truth to that? No idea. No idea. Now, it could be. I'll throw this out there. I don't know if it's true or not, but let's say in the previous lives, someone abused others. They abused others. So measure for measure, what does God do? He could put them back in a body in this world and they get abused. And that's the payback, measure for measure. Now you're going to say, but I didn't deserve that and I didn't this. Okay. I'm putting out as, theoretical. And let's say, let's say in a previous life, someone bullied others. Really bad. So what does he do? What does God do measure for measure to fix that soul up? Puts them in this world and they get bullied. And they get trampled on and all this. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe the person has to go through it for other reasons, to build themselves up, give them confidence, give over to others. Could be payback also. We don't know. Bottom line is we don't know. I don't know. You'd have to go to someone who's more, much more steeped in Kabbalah. Why these things happen. There are people come back as animals. And part of their rehabilitation that they have to be killed. Whether they're ritually slaughtered or not, or have to go through other things. Could be any number of reasons. Any number of reasons. I guess the bottom line from all this is it really doesn't matter. We'd like to know what we're doing here, what the purpose is. We're never going to know according to Kabbalah, we'll never know. The soul cannot know in this world why it's here and what it's doing. Someone explained to me once, many years ago, I'm not saying it's 100% true. Take it with a grain of salt, but think about a person who wants to understand why they're here in this world, what they have to fix up. Think about the thing that is the most difficult thing for you to do. You'd rather slit your wrist with glass and rip out your eyeballs rather than do it. No, I won't get gross here. Some people, maybe it's showing gratitude to others. Maybe for others, it's saying they're sorry for what they've done to someone else. They'd rather do anything else but say sorry to someone else. Now, it's not going to be something that's going to be so easy. If it'd be so easy, then we wouldn't be here. It'd be so easy to fix up. But the reality is, if it's something that's like so hard, and you'd rather do anything rather than do it, I'm not saying that's the reason, and that's the reason that they're here, what they have to fix up, but it very well could be. Again, that's how someone explained it once a number of years ago to me. A lot of questions here. Person's angry, depressed. Can they be under evil's influence or a debuk? No. A debuk means their soul sort of gets possessed by an evil soul that sort of takes over your body. There's only been a handful in the history, of man that's happened. So I definitely wouldn't say that. But it can't be the evil inclination, right? Someone gets angry, depressed, it's definitely the evil inclination, because we just have to know how to look at the world. We don't necessarily know how to look at the world because, we get beaten down in the world. Life is hard. There's no question. So when things happen, and a person, livelihood struck, family issues, other things, it can depress a person. Person goes through a trauma, it can definitely depress them, right? In different ways. It has nothing to do with being possessed, right? That is very rare, right? Extremely rare. So I would say a lot of it has to do with evil inclination. Anyone in this process who wants to convert or be a Noahide, they don't have it easy. They don't have it easy in many ways. Family says, come on, they'll never accept you, they'll make fun of you, they're this or that. And it's very easy when you're living in the middle of nowhere, right? There are no Jews around, no religious people around, this and that. It's hard because you're a minority. And even if you're not a minority, but people say things, it's hard. Then the person makes mistakes. And then the evil inclination comes and see, you don't even know how to pray properly. You don't know this. They're never going to accept you. Basin's going to carve you up. Like all these different things. Evil inclination is very good at its job. Doesn't need me. Doesn't need me. To say that. But a lot of it has to do with evil inclination. It could be also a person's gone through certain things. They may need, to see someone professionally to overcome them. Very well may. Depending what it is. But, if we live what the Torah says, I'm not saying 100%, it's going to answer everything. But if we would live really the way the Torah says, as Rav Victor Miller, blessed memory, says, he was the happiest man. Nothing ever bothered him because he always lived believing, everything's in the hands of God. And he's the one in charge. And look at all the miracles he does. And look at the apple seed. And look at this. And look at that. You see God through nature, through the human body. Million things. Million things. He didn't worry about anything. Are we on that level? No. Should we? If you live the Chovos Levavos, you don't worry about anything. Yeah, but I need to take care of this, take care of that. You're right. You're right, but God's the one in charge. 100%, he's the one in charge. It's hard. Someone asked about making Torah-proof videos. Yeah, I did a number of them on Tanakh Talk. All right, you have to go see. But I made a number of videos proof of that God exists. The scripture states that Ephraim's sons are a punishment. Okay, you'll tell me where that is. Right, there are certain things, again, it is brought down. There are certain things that are punishment for different things. Okay. But I think for the most part, even if a person knows it, does it help them? This is an interesting discussion. Practically speaking, I wouldn't tell people to worry about that much. A little bit more about hell, a little bit less about hell. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's a waste of time. I mentioned this last week. Total waste of time. It exists. 12 months. It's this. Okay, it's interesting. And what's the pain a person's going to feel? And we don't know. We don't know, practically speaking. So I would say, okay, you understand punishment could be very severe for things you do. Okay? So I say, okay, go back to learning. You can't lose focus on what we're supposed to do. This is all esoteric, nice things, but I'm not even going to say it's so nice. But, it's things that, okay, we heard about them. People speak about them. Very good. So what? So that should put fear in us. Maybe. Maybe it should. But, you need fear. I mentioned this last week. You need fear of God. No question about it. But that fear should not be paralyzed and we don't do anything. You need a balance. You need that fear is nothing to talk about. That I would agree. Someone points out, very true. God does not call the Torah calls an abomination. The person is not an abomination. The act is an abomination. Right? But the person himself, okay, so what do we care if he's got an affinity to it or not? That's what we said before. It doesn't matter. Even if he has an affinity to it. So we have an affinity to all kinds of things that are bad. That are bad character traits. So it's also bad. It's just extremely perverse. Can't be natural. I mean, Torah says it's not natural in any way. But, it doesn't matter. And if you say there's a gene, so what? There are a lot of genes. Anger genes, miser genes, all kinds of genes that are bad. But God says, I don't want you to act on it. Right? The person themselves not an abomination. You're right, it's the act. Definitely the act. Are there any unforgivable sins? I would say intermarriage, pretty unforgivable. Unless person converts, not the non-Jew's fault. That's pretty unforgivable. Desecration of Shabbos on purpose. I mean, you can repent. According to Kabbalah, very, very hard to properly repent, to fix it. But, forget about Kabbalah. It can be, in a certain way. Things that are, corporal punishment. Let's say adultery. So, okay, getting killed is atonement. Definitely an atonement. So, I'd say intermarriage is probably unforgivable. Someone, a Jew, doesn't do circumcision, also unforgivable. If they don't do it. It's the Gemara says that Abraham stands over the pit of hell, and saves all Jews except for Jews that don't do circumcision. That's my Rebbe wants. What about if they're intermarrying? He just looked at me and goes, he's not going to save them either. Why would he save them? The Gemara always says about talking about circumcision. Okay. But I would stick by, I would stick to intermarriage. It's probably pretty unforgivable. Because that almost affiliated Jews would say it's forbidden to do. But we don't care about the but it's forbidden. 100% forbidden. And most people know. Most people know it's forbidden. Somebody asked, what is Passover Sheni? So Pesach Sheni, people have a custom of eating matzah today. Even a little bit of matzah, whatever, because on Passover Sheni, there was a month went by where they didn't bring the Paschal offering because they were impure. So now, a month later, this is the month, Passover was a month ago. So this is a month later where the ones that couldn't bring it, they eat matzah today. So that's what we commemorate. Someone asked, why did they come up with the Star of David? I don't know. It's a good point. Not sure. I have to look it up. Any other questions? See the questionnaire coming in. One second. Come on, you don't have any other questions? I don't believe that. You let me off easy now. I'm going to stop there. Anyone has any questions, just, text me or whatever. Anyone has any questions, feel free. I do this every Sunday, 4 o'clock Israel time, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Anyone has any questions, follow me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com, whichever in a good beginning of the day or middle of the day, end of the day, depending where you are, and everyone.